Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back once again to Today in African History with Baba Shaka. I'm Baba Shaka, and today is April 7th, 2021. Like every other day, today is very significant in the history of African people. Indeed, in the history of all people. On this date, April 7th, back in the year 1885, one of our ancestors, who also happened to be one of the leading inventors of the 19th century, patented an apparatus for transmission of messages by using electricity. Granville T Woods, born to free Africans, held various engineering and industrial jobs before establishing a company to develop electrical apparatus. Known as quote-unquote the Black Edison, he registered nearly 60 patents in his lifetime, including a telephone transmitter, a trolley wheel, and the Multiplex Telegraph, over which he defeated a lawsuit by Thomas Edison. Born in Columbus, Ohio, on April 23, 1856, Mr. Woods received little schooling as a young man and, in his early teens, took up a variety of jobs, including as a railroad engineer in a railroad machine shop, as an engineer on a British ship, in a steel mill, and as a railroad worker. From 1876 to 1878, Mr. Woods lived in New York City, taking courses in engineering and electricity, a subject that he realized early on held the key to the future. Back in Ohio in the summer of 1878, Mr. Woods was employed for 8 months by the Springfield, Jackson, and Pomeroy Railroad Company to work at the pumping stations and the shifting of cars in the city of Washington Courthouse, Ohio. He was then employed by the Dayton and Southeastern Railway Company as an engineer for 13 months. During this period, while traveling between Washington Courthouse and Dayton, Mr. Woods began to form ideas of what would later be credited as his most important invention, the Inductor Telegraph. He worked in the area until the spring of 1880 and then moved to Cincinnati. Living in Cincinnati, Mr. Woods eventually set up his own company to develop, manufacture, and sell electrical apparatus, and in 1889, he filed his first patent for an improved steam boiler furnace. His later patents were mainly for electrical devices, including his second invention, an improved telephone transmitter. The patent for his device, which combined the telephone and the telegraph, was bought by Alexander Graham Bell, and the payment freed Mr. Woods to devote himself to his own research. One of his most important inventions was the trawler, which was a grooved metal wheel that allowed streetcars, later called trolleys, to collect electric power from overhead wires. Mr. Woods' most important invention was the Multiplex Telegraph, also known as the Induction Telegraph or the block system, in 1887. The device allowed men to communicate by voice over telegraph wires, ultimately helping to speed up important communications and subsequently preventing crucial errors such as train accidents. Mr. Woods defeated Edison's lawsuit that challenged his patent and turned down Edison's offer to make him a partner. Thereafter, Woods was often known as the Black Edison. I'm not quite sure why Edison wasn't known as the White Woods, but that's another story. Now, after receiving the patent for the Multiplex Telegraph, Mr. Woods reorganized his Cincinnati company as the Woods Electrical Company. In 1890, he moved his own research operations to New York City, where he was joined by his brother, Laetus Woods, who also had several inventions of his own. Mr. Woods' next most important invention was the power pickup device in 1901, which is the basis of the so-called third rail currently used by electric power transit systems. From 1902 to 1905, he received patents for an improved air brake system. By the time of his death on January 30th, 1910 in New York City, Mr. Woods had invented 15 appliances for electric railways, received nearly 60 patents, many of which were assigned to the major manufacturers of electrical equipment that are part of today's daily life. A few years ago, A documentary was released on the History Channel entitled The Men Who Built America. It documented the lives of such men as Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford. Now, what was most noteworthy about this documentary was its glaring omission of the contributions of Africans to the development of this country. Men such as Lewis Latimer, George Washington Carver, Elijah McCoy, Harold Amos, and of course, Granville T Woods. Many of the women in our history also made significant contributions to science and the betterment of life in these here yet to be United States. Inshallah, we will conduct our own special series on African inventors, both men and women, in the near future. Right. Thank you, and again, thank you to all of you who have subscribed to this channel. Our community is growing because of you. To those of you who have not yet subscribed, we invite you to hit that subscribe button down below and add your much needed support to this project of bringing these daily lessons to the fore. Please like and leave a comment down in the comment section. But most importantly, please share, especially with the young amongst us. So, until tomorrow, inshallah, this is Baba Shaka with Today in African History. Masalam.